Hey guys, I'm Rachel O'Leary and I'm the topic of the week.
Hey guys, I'm Rachel O'Leary and I'm topic of the week.
Yet this time, I'm here with her.
You're very tall.
I'm very tall in person.
you know I've met you.
I drove 3,000 kilometers to be here to see you, to remind my audience that you're coming back to YouTube, but none of it included being insulted.
My apologies, my king.
I am quite tall, 6'4", last time I got measured. Bottom line is, we're back, and the first time we talked was relatively interesting, but incredibly mundane in comparison to potentially what we could talk about today. I want to catch up with how things have been, plus I have some questions for you that I'll save for the end. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rachel O'Leary. Unfortunately, she's been a friend of mine for
11 years?
Yeah, something like that. Well, I was going to say 10, but whatever. And to me, she's been, and to many people in the industry, she's been arguably one of, if not the most influential female of the digital era within the aquarium hobby. And she disappeared for a little bit, stopped making videos. If you follow her on Facebook, she didn't disappear. She just had some stuff to go through. But I kind of wanted to bring you guys up to speed with what happened, what was going on. More importantly, like how things began with her hobby, social media, YouTube, and then where things are going, of course, because she's got some really exciting plans and ideas, and her reasoning for coming back is nothing short of inspiring. However, I do have some questions that are...
You didn't bring that game that electrocutes me, did you?
Yes.
Because last time we did this, you hooked me up to...
I did too. I forgot to hit record on this one.
Last time you hooked me up to a machine that if I got the answer wrong or I didn't say what you wanted, you zapped me with electrical current, and I did very poorly.
Well, that's what you get.
I was not a super fan.
Forgot to hit record on that. So, one of the things that, obviously this is my first time here. I must say your property is stunning. Your home is beautiful. One of your daughters, Abigail, came over. I hadn't seen her for 10 years. And,
She still loves Uncle Joey.
Yeah. But nothing is as it seems. The way you film things, it doesn't provide enough perspective in terms of how beautiful your summer tubbing is, which I gotta stand on business right now. Rachel popularized summer tubbing for everybody biting on her. It's fine. That was the purpose of it. However, the fish room, obviously you've downsized it, but when it first began and when I first seen it on video, I don't know how you fit all of that in here.
It was standing room only, except for my throne. But I always felt
Your
like
little throne.
I always felt like it was really important for me to have a place to sit down at the end of the day or during the day, even to just like survey what I was doing and just really like feel connected to it and show it homage. So I've always had this nice little recliner in here. It's not just because it didn't fit in my living room. It was more so that I could turn and swivel and just look at everything.
It must have been a nightmare getting it down here because there's not a lot of walking
No.
space to get down.
It was a struggle. Like some of these racks that are built on here had to be welded in place because the access down the stairs was not large enough to even fit the material. So we had to cut them, bring them down, manufacture them in place.
So I do have a couple of jump off points for you.
Yep.
In terms of things I'd like to talk about. One is obviously you've downsized.
Yes.
And at the same time, kind of, if I use the words of your viewers in the comments, like, where is Rachel? She's disappeared. What caused the downsizing and, the disappearance? I know that there was some health issues.
Yep. So COVID happened, which was a pretty big blow to the industry as a whole. It made it impossible to continue to get fish, sell fish, and all of that. My marriage also dissolved at that time. And then shortly afterwards, I was in a really horrific car accident where my airbags didn't deploy and my seatbelt broke and I smashed in my head and crushed in my chest and all of that, which was super fun. And then...
Show them the forehead.
Oh, he wants me to show you the dent in my forehead. That's from my steering wheel. That's why I have bangs now.
That's not from me saying, get back on YouTube right now.
No, but it might as well be from the amount of times you poked me. So I went to my primary care to try and get some help with my post-concussion syndrome and was diagnosed with cancer. So instead got to go through, multiple surgeries, radiation, chemo, all of that. And it's just sort of been a snowball of health stuff. But I also ended up with like a migraine disorder because of my chemo. And I'm trying now to figure out a way to reincorporate this hobby that I'm so passionate about in a way that I can manage. And also I think it's a really good opportunity to show people like how to do things slow and sort of responsible and ethical and however you want to think. The way that I've always recommended people doing is the way I actually have to do it now. I'm not going to get in 1,000 fish and magically everything's great. Now it's going to be a month in between I get fish because I don't have that many tanks running. And this is the reality. And I think it's sort of a slippery slope on YouTube of watching creators and seeing them get in tons and tons of fish and set up all these tanks and have all these aquascapes and do all these things. And it seems like everything works out, but that's not really the reality of fish keeping. It's very much a bumpy road and one that takes time to do well. So I think this is a good opportunity for me to sort of slow things down and bring people back into the fold and share it real time how it actually is.
I think you're gonna do really good at that. It's interesting to remind people that, and this is shocking and groundbreaking, but YouTubers, the OGs that have been on the internet for a long time, we go through some stuff too. However, a lot of the times we still get it back on camera and smile and do what we're doing for you guys. I believe that we're doing it for the right reasons, and if you think so as well, make sure right now to give this video a thumbs up. However, it kind of leads me into the next kind of question that I never got to cover before, and that is, I remember you from Monster Fish Keepers, yet
the good old days, I like to refer to them as.
Yeah. And I was like, I remember you being the queen of nano, and then you were like, Joey, you called me that. But then you were Invertebrates by Miss Jinx, and then I thought, you've been doing it for so long that are you not kind of primarily responsible for the popularity of nano fish and crustaceans of types and the popularity of them within North America? I know this is so like arrogant to talk about and stuff, but it is, in my opinion, I like origin stories. So how the heck did that even happen? How did you even start getting in nano fish and selling them, and how'd that go?
Well, I think it's important to give credit where credit is due, and inherently like small tanks were always a thing because that's what people could make. So clearly small tanks have always been a thing.
Yeah.
But historically, other than like fancy guppies and stuff, most people considered small fish feeders. And for me, what was important to me was to become a part of this community. And so I started going to cichlid conventions and cichlid clubs and hanging out with the industry,
The cool people
the
are
cool
at cichlid clubs.
the cool people, well, and going to events and hanging out in the hospitality rooms
Yeah.
where everybody like sort of lets their guard down and we're all at the same level, and it doesn't matter if you're a speaker or if you're a first time attendee. For me, that was really
Everybody's just gelling.
really special. And I'd show up with my kids who were 2 and 3 at the time, and we'd like hang out in the hospitality room, and I'd talk about like these cool little shrimp and the genetic heritability of apple snails. And what that ended up providing for me was
That doesn't sound fun.
it was
what?
super
apple
fun.
snails? The what?
Yeah, so I got into invertebrates because I got an apple snail for my first Mother's Day, a Pomatia diffusa, just a mystery snail. And so I went on my dial-up internet and I looked up like how to breed them and stuff. And I was like, oh, they're sexually specific. Oh, wow. Look, this blue snail I bought, if I get a white snail, I have a 0.06% of getting a pink snail and a purple snail and a striped snail and this. So I entered into this like breeding project of
Breeding snails?
breeding mystery snails because I wanted to get all the Crayola colors, like the pinks and the purples and the stripes and stuff like that. And so originally, everything that I did came from working with mystery snails. And with my dial-up internet, I logged in and I got permits to ship them because back then it was required to have a permit to ship them to every state within the United States, even though they are not federally banned anywhere. So I logged in with my dial-up internet and got permits for every state and started breeding them. And then that led me to looking for critters that I could keep with my snails that would not interrupt their breeding. And that's how I got interested in shrimp in 2004, which that's a long time ago now.
21 years.
Yeah.
See how quick my math is?
Chef's kiss.
That's what you get with the GED.
And then that led me to breeding a bunch of different shrimp. And then through going to these different conventions, I got to meet a bunch of people who were like heavy hitters in the industry that were bringing in fish from all over the world. And they were willing to share their exporters information for me to reach out and do kind of like an open call that was like, do you have any fish that are really tiny? I don't care if they're pretty. I just want to get them because I wanted to be able to keep them in my tanks with my invertebrates.
Yeah.
You know, shrimp babies are small, snail babies are small, snail antennas look like worms. Like I needed little tiny fish, and that's how I started getting in fish. But what that meant was that I had to get in like 1,000 of every species I got in. So I would get them in.
But you'd only want
I'd
eight
want
to
like
12.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'd want them for like a 29 gallon or something. So I just wanted something for, honestly, what I wanted was something to eat the food that the snails were
Snails are
inefficient at eating because mystery snails are not very inefficient or not very efficient eaters. So I got this opportunity, and then I started selling off the extras and writing articles and shooting video and taking photos and trying to share my passion, and it just sort of blew up.
And that's kind of also how you got into selling fish, was obviously you had too many.
Yeah, the only reason I ever sold fish is as a vehicle to get me more fish.
Right.
And because, you know, especially living here in rural Pennsylvania, I have a really great...
Very rural Pennsylvania.
I have a really great fish store that's not too far away, that fish place. But when I was doing this, they weren't getting those fish. They do now. But nobody was getting these fish. Like, other than like neon tetras and things like that, like you just couldn't get cool,
bread and
colorful,
butter.
small
Yeah.
fish.
So you were bringing in enough to sustain yourself, but you had this obviously 1,000 extras, so you had to start selling,
Yes.
which is the reason for Fish Pimp on Your Knuckles.
That is. Well, You know, this, I sometimes I'm still not quite sure why I did that, but I thought it was really funny at the time.
I do a lot of things that I thought was funny at the time.
Are they permanent? Because this is permanent.
So
find a job now.
Hi, I'm
Hi. Would you like the pimp knuckles or the fish knuckles?
So, and then I guess this is a good opportunity for me to ask like one of my questions where I'm going to have to bring it up here. Do you miss selling fish?
I miss the excitement of looking through lists and getting a lot of new fish and sort of like breaking the learning curve and discovering new things. But I do not miss the nuts and bolts of shipping and
You're shipping a lot.
Customer service. I was shipping about 120 boxes a week. Now, granted, that isn't like large fish boxes. That might be an order of like 12 shrimp, 10
Right.
Barraris, and a
was,
plant.
This was also during a time where she didn't have like a large social media following. Because if
I
you
didn't have any other than forums.
'Cause if
Like
you-
I was active on Monster Fish
Yeah.
Keepers and Aquarius Central, but there was no like.
tried
I
to
didn't
do
even have a
that-
website.
if you did that nowadays, 120, you'd need staff.
Yeah. Well,
like,
I
you'd be-
probably should have had staff then.
You'd have like 500-600 boxes going out every week.
My
easily.
my whole thing was I never wanted to let go of any level of control. Like I knew what every species was. If I was the one doing the water changes, I knew that no cross contamination was happening from quarantine tank to quarantine tank to quarantine tank. When you have 150 aquariums and you're importing like every week or every other week from 14 different countries, like you have to have a level of quarantine and sterility that
It's quality control.
like one person using a siphon in multiple tanks that are in various levels of quarantine can contaminate the whole thing. So for me, I was never willing to give up any level of control. I also liked to be the person that was like, someone would hit me up with questions and I could answer
You had
those
the
questions.
answers, yeah, it's you.
Someone would hit me up after a shipment with questions or problems and I was the one that was answering. And I knew everything about the transaction because I was the one that took the order, packed the order, shipped the order.
So, at that moment in time, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. 100+ boxes of fish going out a week. You're running customer service. You're running your own promotion. You're also helping moderate these forums, plus at least
Raising 3 kids.
attempting to bring in new fish, take care of things, raising the children, maintain your home, and you know, the list goes on and on and on. And then this incredibly tall and handsome Canadian
Oh, you mean you?
came down to
We met in Boston.
Boston at the American Cichlid Association, and he came down specifically to come to one of his first events, but also to make sure it's me. I don't want us to talk in third person anymore. I don't want to do the storybook anymore. I went down there specifically because I wanted a larger presence of females on social media, and I knew of Rachel, and she was incredibly well respected. So I was going down there as one of my missions, not only to film and
I'm a tough sell though.
Network.
I did not do it.
But I went down there to try to get her to come to YouTube. Like, the world needs you, we need you, and she's like, I'm busy already, I'm doing okay. I already do all this speaking all over North America, visiting the clubs. I was like, yes, but this is the world. What if you could reach your message to the entire world, and you could really have a meaningful and lasting impact on the industry forever. And that sounds so mystical and
Magical.
So, however, it's relatively accurate. But alas,
You did it.
You wanted
You convinced me.
well, you wanted,
It took a while.
That night, you're like, let's just have some drinks and enjoy each other's company and talk fish. And I was like, okay. And I sat there miserably. No, this is fine. I'm enjoying myself. This was worth it.
Everything is awesome.
So for a straight year, I kept going at you and going at you and going at you. And that's when you...
I was a tough nut to crack. And here's the thing, like, I was really, really concerned that if I leapt into this new venture, it would take from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, like, I had all these things.
It would take everything. If you put more time into something, that time has to come from somewhere else. And like I said, you were already maxed out. However, I was being selfish and only focused on the future of the hobby and hyper obsessed with, we have to save it. We have to save it. Something's happening right now. I didn't know that what social media was going to become, but I knew that it's going to be really important. Like, I remember when I started and companies were making fun of me.
I remember watching your videos. You'd put links on Monster Fish Keeper threads of like filter DIYs and all that stuff. I remember that.
Nobody really took it seriously, and but I knew it was going to be the wave, and we all have to get ready and be prepared now. And I was trying to create the A-team. Like, let's flood the internet with the best of the best. And I knew I had to have a really strong female, and you were the person that I knew could do it. And I'm positive you
Sorry I
influenced.
took such a long break.
Don't feel sorry. I just need you to know that I'm not the only one that believes in you. We all want you back. And I wouldn't have drove 3,000 kilometers. I'll be honest. I was on my way home. I don't want you to feel...
Out of his way, on his way home.
I don't want you to feel too great. But
I don't feel too special.
so
Don't worry.
you begin creating the videos, and you've had a tremendous amount of success. But obviously, with the break, you've taken a step back. Why are you coming back?
You know, I just really feel like I still have a story to tell, and I really feel like there's still a very good opportunity for me to share my perspective. And also, I'm kind of concerned about some of the information that is out there, and I'd like to give my perspective. You know, I think that it's a really good opportunity. You know, there's no one way to do anything in fish keeping. You ask 10 people, and 10 people will have 10 different ways. Mm-hmm. But I think my unique perspective is that, like, a lot of my tanks and my fish are almost 20 years old. And I don't think there's many people on YouTube that can say that, like, they've been working with that line of fish over there for 22 years or, you know, things like that. And I think that I have a voice that can offer some insight and some help to people who want to keep things for the long term.
The algorithm's going to be
the algorithm has always hated me. It doesn't matter.
The biggest battle.
Yeah.
I think at this point it's like, who's doing the flashiest stuff. So
I'm never going to do the clickbait titles. I'm never going to do the open mouth thumbnails. That's just not who I am.
It's hard to survive. Gotta eat. With you coming back and obviously it's kind of like me. I stick around because if I don't, what's going to happen?
I really care.
Because the OGs are no longer around. And I think the OGs don't really take YouTube seriously and or are willing to get on here.
It's really weird. Like, there's this strange dichotomy between these people that, like, attend conventions and clubs and are so thirsty for information, but at the same time, they're not willing to offer it. And I think where you finally got me to be involved with YouTube was when you were like, how many people do you speak to? And I was like, oh, anywhere from like, 100 to 1,000. And you're like, well, what if you could reach like 100,000 people that are curious about this topic from the comfort of your home? And I was like, that's really powerful. And that's, my videos aren't flashy. They're not produced, like they're not edited very much.
There's still a niche for incredibly educational videos. A lot of people are done with, Joey, we've had a lot of fun with the creation of the gallery and your storytelling and you're setting up new tanks, but like, can you just go back to, just go reinvent your projects again? Let's do that again. Let's do everything all over again and keep doing it. And after 17 years, I'm like, I always assume everybody saw all my videos. So I think
it's like you're riding waves with the people that are coming through.
Well, I think one of the things that you'll have to potentially consider is everybody watching you moving forward is brand new. So start all over and don't feel like you have to pick up where you left off.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
That's really good advice, because I do assume, especially with, my audience isn't that large, I do assume that people have been around.
On my way down the stairs, I had to walk past a plaque that says you had 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Enough. So you mentioned a second ago that there's, relative concerns about information and being shared. And this, the questions that I'm going to ask you, you have no affiliation with my questions. I created them. I'm asking them, but they are controversial.
We did not rehearse this.
However, you have got to answer it with a real answer. So if you could erase one method of fish keeping from the history of the hobby and everybody's minds, what could it be? Like one mythology, one thought process, one way of keeping fish. Like there's so many different ways of like daily water changes, no water changes, no filters, whatever you want. One method of fish keeping.
For me, it is definitely the no water changes. I really feel like dilution is the solution to pollution, and especially when we're keeping these like closed ecosystems, especially with fish that are new to our aquariums, that the best thing that we can do as they're settling in is to provide a really dilute environment so that pathogens don't have the ability to multiply. And I think you're doing yourself a great disservice by not just doing something as simple as a water change. That's not to say that you can't have a successful aquarium without water changes. There's a lot of science that goes into like plant and nutrient uptake and old tank syndrome, all the things. Like there's, 100 years of stuff that we can look at, but I have never once seen a fish suffer from clean water.
Yeah.
I have seen them suffer from bad water.
I'm always open to, when it comes to fish keeping, it's one of the only things that I'm not stubborn about. When somebody says something I don't like or something I've never heard of, I'm still willing to hear that side and kind of consider it and kind of weigh that mythology of or how they're doing things and hear them out, because I am, believe it or not, you can sway my opinion. It's going to take as much.
I think the best thing about this hobby is that we get to learn new things constantly. And if you ask 10 fish keepers that are super successful how they do things, you're going to get 10 different answers. And I think anyone who says that there is a formula that you can follow and there's one way to do things it's a crock of shit, because that's not the case. There's so many variables in fish keeping, between the water parameters, your source water, your substrate, your plant mass, your aeration, your ambient temperature, the oxygen absorption based on ambient temperature, that there's no one should ever say that this is how you do it.
Well, you just kind of mentioned an incredible amount of like important aspects to maintain the health of an aquarium, but what is the most important aspect of the hobby for it to continue. If we don't continue to do this aspect of it, it's doomed.
I think that comes down to sort of the ethics of keeping fish. And, you know, a lot of people look at fish as disposable pets, but the reality is that a lot of the waterways, especially with the fish that I'm interested in, are critically threatened. So we're doing a great disservice to these fish, to the environments they come from, the people who collect them, the people who live off that money, and everyone in the whole chain of command if you don't do a good job.
So, wild caught.
The vast majority of nanofish are wild caught because it's not financially feasible to farm them. And if you do farm them,
I'm seeing a dramatic downturn in the quality of fish.
there's a lot of deformities.
Their genetics are, especially in rays and some of the higher end ones that you can make so much money off of, but they're so interbred that I think that wild caught is incredibly important. Not only are we supporting the economics of that country and those people, where dams and deforestation will happen if they don't have
palm oil production, gold mining, all of those things. But, you know, and the thing is that there's systems in place now where, you know, like through Project Piaba and things like that, where there's also databases of ethical collectors and people who are rewarded for, you know, doing things the right way. I mean, there's like, this is the age of the internet. We can find out who is good to get fish from.
So ethics could be applied to
husbandry.
Everything.
Ethics can be applied to where you buy. I mean, I'm very much a put your money where your mouth is kind of girl. I feel like we should support the people that support the hobby. We should support the people that are trying to give us like the best that they can for the well-being of the fish and the well-being of the continuation of our hobby. I mean, and if you look too at legislation and stuff like that, like it's kind of a scary time for our hobby. There's a lot of legislation that's trying to go through to just shut down any exotics, and that includes our fish. So it's important that...
That's for the United States, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Doesn't apply. I'm in Canada. So I remember when I got into the hobby, for my information gathering, I would get it from the local library. This is before I knew about local clubs. In fact, I only found out about clubs because I was trying to sell everything off to get out of the hobby when they told me, why don't you sell it to your local club or put it on their forum? And I was like, forum? Club? I went on, and that's what hooked me back in. So I remember when it was libraries, I remember when it was local clubs, and then
magazines too.
And then, I remember when I probably shouldn't say it, but I remember when Tropical Fish Hobbyists used to have like 3-month free subscriptions, and I used to just change the name, and I keep getting them. I never paid, but I got a hell of a lot of
magazines. It's like AOL back in the day. You
Yeah.
just kept getting new intro DVDs or whatever they were called.
But then I also remember what happened with the hobby, with the internet. It seems like things escalated so quickly. Do you prefer your hobby, not everybody's? Do you prefer your hobby with or without the internet? Obviously, you got to meet a bunch of people because of the internet, etc.
I think that what I've always loved about this hobby is the sense of community. And when I was, 23 years old with babies, for me, that community was on a forum where I used dial-up internet. When things went a few years later, then it was clubs and it was events, I feel like, and then it was like Facebook, and then it was YouTube and then Instagram and...
Don't point at me for YouTube. I didn't
Well, because you made me do YouTube.
Okay.
For me, I think I think it's always been about like fostering this sense of community. And I don't know that I really do miss the old forum days. Like it was like a real time, which I know that's what Instagram and Facebook and whatever is, but it was a different like timeline because they were all like real time. So everything showed up in an actual like
it was more
chronological.
It was more so experiencing the hobby with your peers as opposed to being showcasing and here's what I'm doing and what do you think?
I really did not enjoy when it changed from me like being in the background in hospitality suites to being in the foreground. It's been I'm kind of an introvert, so it was, I mean, I know I don't seem like it, but
I only understand what foreground means. My vocabulary is not huge, but I know what foreground plants are. So the hobby has expanded my vocabulary.
no, I'm just saying like I used to be like the person
In the
that
back
was
and then at the
listening
front.
and then
Yeah.
contributing and then forging connections, and then it went to like people asking me everything, so I was always on, and that was hard for me. So I don't know.
That's exhausting.
It is exhausting, and it's hard because you don't get to have the same organic like relationships with people that you would if they didn't know who you were before they met you.
And you and I rarely get to match up, but we were upstairs in your kitchen after eating your beautiful dinner that you made me and made everybody else watch me eat it, and they couldn't have any.
Yeah, they all had to just stand there with their arms behind their back, waiting until the king had finished
There's
his
quite
meal.
a large chair that I ate in. No, and we were conversating, and we were trying to include the other two that were there with us, which was
Our partners.
and but only because it was helping our conversation.
They're real troopers, let me tell you. Joey and I have always known how to like dominate a room when we're there together.
Well, I'm pretty much in tune with you. Like I enjoyed probably my hobby a little bit more before. Obviously, forums takes internet, but what I'm talking about, I guess, maybe is social media. I probably should have worded that better, but I probably enjoyed being one of them, I guess you could say.
Agreed.
A little bit more.
Yeah, man, it's really isolating when you. I think that doing, I mean, especially at your size, like the size of your channel, it has to be so isolating. I know for me, like even just being a smaller channel, like it always felt like a lot of times people wanted something if they were talking to me, and I lost a lot of that like organic connection that was the most like passionate, powerful, beautiful part of this hobby for me. And I'm really hoping that I've been away long enough that I can have that back again. We'll see.
The entire industry is waiting for you. It's
well,
gonna
my
be
finger's
exciting
been
for
off
you.
the pulse for like 3.5 years now, so I don't even know what people are talking about, what they're doing. I don't know anything about like the current tech. Like I'm figuring it all out. And
so you can mind control fish now.
oh,
Yeah, you'll
do
like
you do
it.
it with laser beams? Because I have a dent in my forehead where a laser would fit beautifully.
It's not centered. It's not going to be aesthetically pleasing. So I remember when I got stingrays for the first time, it changed everything in my hobby forever. I began building tanks. I became a more technical aquarist, etc. But what was your turning point in the hobby where you knew that's where this is the next level? Like, catapulted yourself. Like, everybody has a little something that changes it.
So my ex-husband gave me 3 10-gallon tanks, and my mom gave me $100, and I set up 3 shrimp breeding tanks. And we had just moved into this house that I'm in now, which was just about 20 years ago. And this room that we're sitting in, my fish room, was my husband's workshop. And the deal was I could set up 3 tanks with shrimp, And if I could make enough money to build a shop, then I could take over the basement and start a fish room. And I did it in about 6 months with 3 10-gallon tanks.
Jesus.
And they were all in my bedroom, and it was very loud. And that small showing of support from the limited family I had was like all I needed to, because you know how cherry shrimp breed. You can get 30 babies from a single female every 6 to 8 weeks. If you're selling, you get 20 of them and they're doing well, and then you get more color forms and whatever. And back then, cherry shrimp were like so hard to come by.
You know how, like, if you're a dog breeder, you have to retire the mom eventually? Do you have to retire shrimp, or you just breed them till they...
Not so much the shrimp. The apple snails, the females often need a break, mainly because the males are so less vicious, so horny, that they'll, like, wear grooves into the female shell, so you have to separate them.
What do they wear? They wear grooves into the shell with what?
They're
winky?
penis.
They have
Yeah.
Snails have those?
Sexually specific ones do. Mystery snails have enormous penises.
Oh, stop it. It can't be that big.
It's true.
They're like this big.
No, they're like this big. On a snail that's like this big.
That is quite large.
It's impressive.
It's no longer hung like an elephant. It's hung like a
hung
mystery.
like an apple snail.
Yeah. So the other thing what is your worst time in the hobby? Like absolute bottom of it, where you were gonna get out of it, and then what was your best favorite moment?
I think worst and hardest are kind of different things. I've had a lot of like really steep learning curves within this hobby. When I started importing, like a lot of times exporters will ship out orders and then people will bail on their orders. So the transshipper or even the fish and game people will be like, hey, there's these boxes of fish. We know you also get fish. Would you be willing to come and buy these fish? But they'd already been sitting there for a day. One time I went and I picked up, I think it was 4,500 cardinal tetras.
And they want you to buy them, not just take them? And do you get to check them out
I don't
first?
have to pay freight. You just pay. These are like... Well, maybe people don't know, but a lot of times things like cardinal tetras or whatever from the wild are like 3 cents a piece.
$800 for shipping.
But $800 for shipping.
Yeah.
So the shipping is the expensive part. So, if I'm already going there to pick up fish, spend another $50, pick up a few thousand fish.
Did you get to look first?
Nope.
Oh. So it was like a gamble, but like
Yep.
$50, $100.
So you bring them home, I put them in a tank, and they all went belly up in about 15 seconds. Because they've
4,500?
They've been sitting there for 3 days, which they did not disclose to me, and I didn't know it until I looked at the air bill.
Were they swimming around in the bag?
Some of them. I mean, it was really ammonia-contaminated water.
What did you do for acclimation? What was your method?
Well, when I opened the box and saw that about 300 of them were dead, I just scooped out the living fish and put them...
Okay. Yeah,
I mean, they'd been in my car. So I was driving to New York. New York is 3.5 hours away from me. That's where I used to pick up my fish. I used to go every week.
That's kind of a cool gig. Where like they call you like, hey, we got a box of fish here.
Happens all the time.
Give us $50.
Especially with transshippers, like people that bail on orders, or like say someone places an order for like 30 boxes of fish, but only 2 boxes come in. They're like, well, we don't want to, it's not worth our time to come get 2 boxes of fish when we ordered 30. They'll throw out an email to all the other people that ordered and say, hey, are you interested in picking up these bags?
I've never got that email.
Well, it happened a lot when I was.
And that was your bottom, 4,500 cardinals.
They all died and I just remember sitting down here. They were in that tank right there, and I remember just sitting down here and sobbing.
Well, what's a cardinal tetra go for? $5?
Yeah.
So $25,000 almost. 20 grand.
Yeah, that would be the lost potential, but I didn't have that into it.
$50, $100.
But I just remember feeling so like morally bankrupt that I thought I was doing this service for these fish by bringing them home. And
it wasn't a financial thing.
No, for me it was like my heart just broke because I thought that I was saving these fish, and it was a really valuable lesson in that, like, in ethics and just being prepared, because I had, obviously didn't have a tank set up for them. They email you the day of, like when I was going to get them. And so I came home and there was a tank running. It was seasoned. It was, whatever, but like it just was a bad day.
Chat, forgive me for making it about money. I saw like 20 grand in cardinals. My bad.
No, for me, I was just heartbroken that I thought I was doing this like service to save these fish.
Yeah.
Because if I wouldn't have taken them and no one else took them, they would have just been sitting in a box until they all died anyway. So I thought I was like doing this thing. I'm still looking over there, like I can still see it because I put them in the tank and they all sunk to the bottom and then they all just went belly up, right back up. It was horrible. It was horrific.
Well, we probably should have ended on that. And
well, but you asked about the high point.
The high point. You've had a lot of high points. You've wrote a book.
I did.
You've been a keynote speaker and speaker all over the world. You've hit 100,000 subscribers 150. On YouTube. 150, my bad. You're arguably one of the most influential. I don't even feel at times comfortable saying female, because everybody owes something to you in terms of how they keep fish in the social media era. As soon as I got you onto social media, so I guess if you like Rachel, you have to thank me too.
Well, I mean, if I got to say what the high point was, I think it was really powerful and impactful for me to realize through you and because of you that.
So I'm saying this because I'm here.
No, I'm not.
If we were doing this remotely, like I was home, you'd say something way different.
No, like it's been really powerful to see the digital community. I have to say, I honestly, when I made my first video after being sick for so long, I really didn't expect any response, and to see the response that came out of the woodwork, it was really special.
It's encouraging and inspirational.
Well, I mean, it just meant so much because, I mean, this is something I've dedicated, I mean, basically all of my adult life to. Yeah. And actually, I mean, I've been doing this since I was like not even a teenager, planted tanks and stuff. I've had since I was like 10 or 11 years old. So to come back and just see the response from the community has been really powerful.
So that you would say, coming back and seeing their response.
The community, like being like, hey,
has been one of your favorite moments of your entire career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Pardon my language, but okay. Like, I mean, car accidents, divorce, cancer, kids growing up, like the stuff that we went through. I mean, if you followed my channel at all, like my ex-husband was in a horrific motorcycle accident. Yeah. Like there's been like 10 years of just a slog, and some of that was not on YouTube, most of that was not, but just to see that there's still the people that like are super interested in my species spotlights and summer tubbing and like the stuff that I think that is I
often talk about the accolades, about, well, you hit 100,000 or you're so important, you're so impactful, but a lot of people also ask me at times, like, Joey, why do you keep doing it? It's for your exact description of like how you felt when you came back and how you just mean so much to so many people. And it might not be that you mean so much, it's that you're just having such an impact on people that you have to keep going for them no matter what. You always have to keep going and hit that record button, even if you're not good at making videos anymore, or you can't talk the same way as you once did because you've just been through too much and too much has happened. A lot of people just want to continue to be a part of your life because a lot of people they know us even though they've never met us.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, like, secondhand, my oldest daughter just graduated from college, and there's a lot of you that may be watching that remember when I was back on Aquarius Central when I had my daughter. Like, that is crazy to me. And, like, the family that I've built through Fish Keepers is just something that I don't have any replacement for in my life.
I guess that at times, because now we're both in our 40s, we've dedicated at least 20 years,
for me.
20 plus years to this. We don't have enough time left.
Oh, God.
To
Don't
make,
say that to a girl who's had cancer twice.
to make, well, to like kind of go on to a different path and find a new meaning in life. This is it. This is what we've chosen. And I think that's where we find our common bond because, you know, we might not agree on everything, but we do agree on a lot of things when it comes to the ethics and moralities.
Yeah, look, I think it's like a lot of things and a lot of relationships. Like, you can have a lot of differences of opinions, but I think you and I have always agreed that, like, good husbandry, you know, honest sharing of information, good and bad, is what is critically important because that's how people learn. And we've both always been, absolutely concerned with transparency, whether people like it or not.
I will say that although we have incredibly different tanks, and yours are arguably better looking and you're far more articulate and a much better aquascaper and probably a horticulturist at the very minimal. I will say that I bet you Tamara likes your tanks more than mine. And would you mind, like, just giving me a... So this is the hill stream. So just walk me through, like, 15 seconds of each one. Because everybody's going to kill me if I didn't...
So that's a 150-gallon hill stream. Right now in it, everyone's hiding because, honestly, it's a bit late at night and the lights have been out down here for a bit and we just turned them back on. It has some 20, like maybe 20 to 30, 15 to 20-year-old loaches in it, as well as some Brachydaniocyathet and some Daniochopre maybe. I'm not even sure what's still in there. As well as there's a nearite snail. I'm not sure if it shows up on frame. That nearite snail is 22 years old. It moved here from my house that I lived in before here in Delaware. That was my first algae-eating snail, and it is still there.
So this is the hill stream tank.
Yep, that's the hill stream.
And then down to the...
This is the 75-gallon nano, and you're gonna see comments where people are like, she said 75-gallon nano. It is a 75-gallon of nano fish. You can do this. It doesn't have to be a small tank. And this actually, now everybody's sleeping. There's Petroichthyes rosy, which is a rosy hovering loach. There's a ton of Daniochopre. There's a couple white clouds. I just recently put a video out on my channel that says what's in there. There's some mono shrimp in here that are at least 10 years old. And I actually have some fish in quarantine. This is these two tanks are the ones that I'm mainly focusing on rebuilding the communities of right now.
Yeah, it's clear that you're going to be reinvigorating and restocking and adding to.
For sustainable communities for the long term. That is a 75-gallon paludaria.
I never seen this at all. I wouldn't have called this.
So that one was started right
before
COVID. Nick Kinzer designed that. He didn't ever actually get to finish planning it because COVID happened and social.
Nick who?
Kinzer. He's down from Maryland. He's the same club as Christine's,
Oh,
Capital
okay.
Cichlid.
Okay, right.
He's incredibly talented aquascaper and especially good at building paludariums.
So you didn't do this one?
Well, I did all the plants.
Oh, he scaped it.
He put in the rock work.
Okay.
And there's a build on my channel from this one.
I'll rewatch it.
And it's actually a waterfall tank, but when I got cancer and was super sick.
That's why.
Well, when I got super sick, the pump started leaking,
no
and I
waterfall.
turned it off, and there's no livestock in it, so I just haven't turned it back on. This is an example of, like, accepting that you can't always have things go the way you want them to, but making it work with what you can do.
It's
and I
beautiful.
think that's an important thing within our hobby, is to recognize what we can and can't do, and to set realistic expectations for ourselves. Eventually, I will fire the waterfalls on this side. Eventually, I'll fire that back up. But there's no livestock in there. And then up on the top, I have some quarantine. First is the glow light carplet. I just recently did a species spotlight. The next one is a divided 20 long that has Chinese firebelly newts. To the right of that is a 20 long that has Micronemachilus cruciatus, the dwarf zebra hovering loach, in my top 10 favorite fish of all time. Below that is my just white cloud mountain minnows. I've been working with that line for over 21 years. To the left of that is a quarantine for some hillstream. Below that is a quarantine for some hillstream, and that's pretty much all I have going on as far as fish tanks right now. I do have 5, 6, 7 more that are empty. I don't know that I plan to fill all of them or not. Time will tell. The primary focus right now is just to reestablish communities in the 150-gallon Hillstream, the 75-gallon Nano, and I do have plans to set up a 75-gallon South American. This is going to be a Asian Nano. So I'd like to have a 75-gallon Asian and a 75-gallon South American.
So I know that you're not importing anymore, and you're not really selling, but you're still getting a hold of some pretty interesting and rare fish, and they look incredibly healthy. If you don't mind sharing with my audience, because I'm Canadian, and where I get my fish, most of my audience is American. Where are you getting your fish now?
So I'm really fortunate that I have connected with this incredible guy, Dominic, at newaquashop.com, who has offered to sponsor my species spotlights. So he is providing me with the fish that I want, and also making sure they're available to the people who are watching and giving them a discount code.
So you're gonna bring in like super cool fish that I've never heard of or seen before, and make a species spotlight.
And then he's gonna make sure that they're in stock for people, at
Everybody
least in the
else.
United States, that are interested in getting them. It's actually really cool because he does things the way that I used to do. Like, he quarantines, but he doesn't medicate unless medication is necessary.
Yeah.
He's running a really comprehensive website with species information on it. And
Does he ship? He ships.
Yeah,
Okay.
he ships. He's outside Chicago, so it's also, and he does regional shipping. So it's not. My thought process was that finding this incredible guy who's quarantining fish in the central part of the United States means that it's going to be relatively affordable for people. Everybody. And he's been incredible. And again, like, I'm going to be getting probably a shipment a month of stuff in an organic fashion for me to restock my tanks. I'm going to be making species spotlights. And he has a landing page on his website with recommendations for me. And we'll be building up, like, content together where I may say, like, these species...
is this the one that you were talking about? Like, he's open to the idea of, like, if you want to do...
curated packages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is dangerous.
He's really, really, really good at what he's doing. And so he's built he's putting my species spotlights on there. So it's going to be a great way for people to get information, have availability to fish, invertebrates, plants. He works with more things than what I work with, but all with the same passion and attention to detail.
Yeah. This is dangerous. This is going to be dangerous because if you start putting together, these type of packages and or like a lot of people don't know what goes with what or for what tank size or what should they get, and they spend so much time, and a lot of the times, God forbid, they're going to get the wrong information. They're going to kill a tremendous amount of fish, and or things might work out. But what about tank size? Like, let's say maybe there's like a click 10 gallon, and here's a few ideas.
Well, there's very little that I work with that doesn't work in a 10 gallon. So, I mean, and the way
Queen of Nano, I guess.
The way he has things set up is he has them set up like you can buy things in minimum groupings for fish that require minimum groupings.
Do you know what your code's going to be?
It's Rachel 10. And so everyone gets 10% off.
So every time you do a species spotlight moving forward,
anytime anyone goes there, if they use that
and they'll get
code,
10% off.
Yeah.
Oh,
but I don't get kickbacks from that. That's just him trying to reward the audience.
Well, one of the interesting things about species spotlights is people will see it,
and then they want it,
and then go to their fish stores and they don't have them, and
this
is dangerous.
Especially tiny stuff, because the thing is, here's the reality, guys. With a lot of like really tiny species, most fish stores, unless they're utilizing sponge filtration, teeny tiny fish do not do well in a central system. They just get sucked into the sump.
Are those adults?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. They're what's really interesting about them too is like for a while there, I was supplying a lot of like cancer research labs around the country with Danny and Ella.
It's so cool to see like the do-it-yourself aspects of your fish room too, that blend in so well to these tanks.
Those guys are similar to Danny and Ella, but like 200 times as sturdy. So way better suited for shipping and to get into people's tanks. I have some aquariums from the 1930s, little like hand forged.
Back when you were born?
Yeah. Grandma here.
I would never know.
That's why I'm wearing a cardigan, because I was born in 1930.
I said that earlier.
Anyway, I'm going to be setting up a special tank just for them. I actually had ordered them.
The cardigan was for... We should address the cardigan. The cardigan was for a graduation.
For my daughter's graduation from college, I had to look like a grown-up lady.
Rachel had to grow up for one day.
I also grew my hair out in one day just for that.
And it looks really good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd gotten those fish put in this tank, but then I got them, and he had warned me that they were really small, but I didn't know what that fish was, and he had it. Which... I don't remember the last time.
I feel like I've seen some Rasboras maybe that were that like kind
well,
of
yeah,
small.
they're in the same clade as Barraris and Danny and Ella and soon to Danio and all those guys, like all those tiny micro Rasboras. Mm-hmm. They're in the same clade, so they look kind of similar. But these guys get like that tank doesn't have a background. But when they're in a tank with a background, they look like, do you know what Microdevario cubitai are? The little micro green Rasboras? Oh. They're super bright green.
Yes.
They look like them, but about a third of the size. And so
I think I've seen pictures of them, but I only seen them in person recently. Like, I don't think they were called chili Rasboras, but they were like red, and they were like super, like, similar in size to that. And it's interesting to see a photo on the internet. It's interesting to see a video, but you can't put it into perspective until you see it in person.
Well, that's when
that is ridiculously
so
small.
I did a species spotlight on those a couple weeks ago or last week, I'm not even sure when, and I put 10 of them in a half-gallon betta, like Aquarium plastic betta thing, mm-hmm. and I could have fit 10 more and it still wouldn't have looked full. And I did like further out shots and then zoomed in, because one of the things about macro photography is that like you can't tell how small things are. So I'm going to try and do better about that as well, as showing like more realistic scale, if you will.
Well, Rachel, I have a feeling that we could talk forever.
Yeah.
We talked quite a bit before this, and then for about an hour here. And
Sorry.
it's supposed to be 20 minutes.
Sorry.
Whatever. I knew this was going to
Let me
happen.
say it in Canadian. Sorry.
Sorry. I say that. How do you say it?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry. I guess I'll see you in the next video. So, hey,
Yeah.
you don't even talk like that.
I do not talk like that.
So, Rachel, thank you for having me in your home and letting me sleep in your driveway.
I offered him a guest room, but he insisted on sleeping in the gravel.
It's fine. I'll sleep
It's
outside.
only raining a little bit.
No, I have the fish mobile. If you guys enjoy this type of video, if you enjoy seeing Rachel, make sure you check out the link in the description as well as the pinned comment. It's a link directly to her channel. Subscribe if you're not already. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. I thoroughly enjoyed this type of conversation. This is going directly on my main channel. It wasn't necessarily a podcast, but rather a conversation. I did ask a few questions, and I knew that if I just sat down with Rachel, the conversation will flow. If you want to see us together again, let me know in the comment section below, because I know that every time we talk,
People seem to enjoy it.
well, honestly, what we should have did is just as soon as I got here, hit record.
I know.
It's such good conversation.
You guys missed like 4 hours of us spitballing about the industry,
Like,
and
even-
aquascaping and contests and like.
even her partner, who's not a fish
He's
keeper
never
at all,
kept the fish, yeah.
and he's got to be up first thing in the morning.
6 a.m.
He stayed up all night and then started recording us. I was like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Like, what,
He's
are we talking
documenting.
about?
He's documenting it for me,
Yeah.
for my history.
It was
not
interesting.
for anything else. But
It was and I think that we should do this again.
I need to come back out and see the gallery,
I
because
was
I
just
haven't seen the gallery since you first built it.
I was just gonna say that, sweetheart, you have not seen my tanks lately, or how into plants I am now.
Okay, Mr. ADA. You think I don't pay attention? I know.
I'm trying, but
You've always been good at plants.
I'm good at fish keeping. I'm not good at scaping and plants and stuff.
Well, it's different, and here's the thing, like, not to derail, and I know you're trying to wrap this up, but I think you and I are both in the same place with plants and aquascaping, in that it's supposed to enrich the life of the fish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you have always embraced that.
The thought of I want to keep a fish comes first, and then I start thinking of the tank, and if I don't have it, I'll build it, and then I'll try to come up with some sort of an environment that is best for them. But being on the internet, it's a very delicate balance where you have to do what's right for the fish, but also make it aesthetically pleasing for the viewers too.
Yep.
Or they'll eat you alive.
Oh, yeah.
And I know it. So I know it a lot. If I would have came here like 5 years ago, I
Oh
would
my
have.
gosh.
I wouldn't have known a lot of the plants that you have right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I know you have crypts up here. I know you've got some a dwarf sag.
Yep.
But if you want to see this on a large scale, in hundreds of gallons, where this stuff is going
I need to come see
crazy,
you.
I think the next one we should do is up in Canada, or how I like to say it, Canada.
Well, good for
In Nova Scotia.
Luckily for you, I renewed my passport, so you just need to let me know when.
Or lucky for them. And if you guys want to see that, make sure you subscribe
Let
if
us
you're not
know.
already. Yeah, let us know in the comment section below. Or if you guys want us to not be friends anymore, that would be great. Let me know in the comment section below.